Never before has there been this day, a time to discover, to run, jump, and play, to feel our purpose, calling, and might, sitting with wonder as day comes from night. Here's where the essence of our day will begin, stillness to opening all that is within. All is carried inside my head, heart, and soul. Our labors must be done with love. That's the toll. Blessings and thank you for the power I seek gives me this day to climb another peak. Writing and thoughts of what will be makes you, you, and me. Good morning and welcome to Morning Momentum Mondays. Today we're talking about boundaries. And I thought, who better to kick us off on boundaries but my little buddy, spirit animal, Snoopy. Now, for those of you who remember Snoopy from back in the day, and he's still around today, he was, I wanted to utilize him today. I love this sweatshirt that I have, and I thought, oh, Snoopy, perfect. Because he had boundaries. People knew exactly where he was at, and even when he was going off into his imagination and all of that, he was very clear about his wants and his needs, and that's what boundaries is all about. Joe Cool, think of him as Joe Cool, which is what he liked to call himself. And I just shout out to Charles Schulz for all the Peanuts characters who really had a mind of their own and helped us to see different personality types. But today we're going to talk about boundaries and how they affect your life. So in this morning's victory letter, I talked about boundaries a bit, but I want to give you some solutions to boundaries, right? Putting boundaries into place. Last week we talked about tolerations. We'll put a link here below for that video. And boundaries is what you put in place so you don't have to deal with tolerations all the times, that you know that these are the things in life that I want to have around me and that I don't. It's you can think of it as a filter to keep things away from you that you don't want. It's things like, if you have a family member who likes to blast the news first thing in the morning and you don't want to hear it, you put up a boundary. You don't want to hear the news, or ask them to put it in an earphone to listen so that you don't have to. I mean, that's a simple little boundary, but there's much bigger boundaries for relationships and things in our lives. So I'm going to give you 10 tips to dealing with boundaries and help you to see it a little bit more. The very first thing is to acknowledge where your needs are being met and where that you're not getting met, and that allow you to be you. And this is the key to so many things we'll talk about along the way in our morning momentum, is this whole idea about letting yourself be you. So the second thing is, and if you haven't done it yet, I highly recommend you go back to that tolerations video and you wrote down those 10 things you're tolerating, whether it's in your business or in your home life, and how you'll put boundaries up. So let's say you've taken care of some of the things you've been tolerating, how you'll put boundaries in place to keep them from happening again, right now and into the future. Number 3 is to decide who and how you will let it be known that you're doing this work around your boundaries and how it might affect them. So whether it's a family member or someone at your office, home life, business life, it's all the same. But we can't just start putting boundaries around us and then not say anything to the people that it's affecting, because then they're going to be, oh, she's just being kind of bitchy. And no, this is a boundary I got to put up, and here's why. And an example I will give you of that is a morning momentum, right? Having your morning momentum practice. One of the things when I decided to put that stake in the sand over 10 years ago was, telling my husband, I need this time in the morning. Now, it took us some adjustment time because at that point in our lives, he was getting up early and going to work. So I pretty much cut myself off in the morning, but it's what I needed to do. It made me a happier, better person in the long run. And once he got used to it, I think he might say different, but I think that he got used to it, and that's just the way that things were. And I was, happy wife, happy life. Yeah, for sure. So let those people you know around you. And clearly, number 4 is to clearly communicate to each person who'll be affected, and how they can honor you, and how it's really going to help them in the long run too. Number 5 is to be kind and yet firm as you start to implement your boundaries. That's the hardest part, right? We want people to like us and love us and all that stuff. And if we say something that might tick them off or upset them, that's a big reason why a lot of times we don't put boundaries into place, because we don't want to upset other people. Again, whether it's in your home life or business life. For me, one of the reasons that I became an entrepreneur, way back in my 20s, is because I couldn't put up with some of the corporate stuff that was going on. People were I worked for one company that they had one layoff and then another layoff. And when they had the third round, I was in management. And I said, please, if you have another round, put me in it. I cannot continue to put people through this. That was my boundary. And oh yeah, they did. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because that's when my entrepreneurial life took off and I got to do what I wanted. And created several companies since then. So that's to be firm about it. You've got to say, this is it. Number 6 is to care enough about yourself to be selfish. Yes, it's okay to be selfish when it comes to your boundaries that you put in place, especially if you're experiencing pushback. Might be pushback from your kids, again, coworkers, your partner in life, whoever it is. But, you've got to care enough about you to say, I got to do this. And you got to be selfish. And sometimes, especially for us as women, it's hard to do because we're supposed to make everybody happy, aren't we? But not necessarily. Be selfish. Number 7 is to have the courage to act quickly and appropriately if someone violates your boundaries that you've asked them to honor. Because if you let it slide, right? We let things just slide. We all know what happens. People go, oh, she's not even serious about this. Especially your kids. So really have the courage to react, say no. And I'll share a quick story with you. Years and years and years ago, when I worked for a backpacking company in Southern California, one of the lovely jobs I had for a while, and then it got not so lovely, and I left. But my boss at the time, I will never forget this ever, is that he said to me, I showed up late for work. I was up like 15 minutes late. It wasn't too bad. And he looked at me straight in the eye and he goes, look, we aren't late around here. You're supposed to be here at this time. That's the time you need to be here. He didn't yell at me. He didn't do anything but look me in the eyes and very directly say, this basically is a boundary. I don't tolerate people just cruising in whenever they feel like it. So it stuck with me. I was never late again. So 7 is to act quickly. Number 8 is to be open to honoring and respecting their boundaries as well, because respect, I think, as we know, is a two-way street. And when you respect someone else's boundaries, they are much more willing, I'll use that, to respect yours. So be open and to respecting their boundaries as well. Number 9 is to thank those close to you, those who have been honoring your boundaries, a simple thank you and telling them why that meant something to you on an ongoing basis. Thanks for honoring my morning momentum this week. It's just been really great. And maybe share a little bit about what you're experiencing because they did that for you. Number 10, and the final one here, is acknowledge and celebrate. Like, think of it, a boundary, putting a boundary in place and making it happen as a goal. As you put your goals down for your month ahead or your week ahead, it's looking at that and saying, getting this boundary in place will make such a difference in my life. So I need to do that. So then once you do it, is to celebrate it, to honor yourself for doing that. And pretty soon, it's like for me with Morning Momentum, it's become a way of my life because I have honored it for so many years. Now, do I ever get off track? Sure, and I feel it for sure. And I would encourage you, we do have our Morning Momentum Challenge. It's a 21-day challenge. I'll put the link below. But you can try that out to really see what would it be like to, there's a plane going overhead. I don't know if you can hear it or not. There it goes. But to try these steps, because sometimes putting a boundary in place, it's one step and then another and another, and that's what I've put together in the Morning Momentum Challenge. It's simply $14, so it's well worth it. You can't even say it's like a cup of coffee, because coffee is much more expensive than that. However, it is a real inexpensive way to, every day you'll get an email and it will prompt you for that. You'll get a whole list of things to do in front that will cover you over, it's 21 days, it takes 21 days to make a habit, and different things that you can do to make your morning momentum practice even better. So that's really what I wanted to share with you here this morning, is this whole idea of the boundaries that you put around you, and how from that you can watch your life start to happen in ways that you didn't think were possible because you were feeling drained. You were thinking about, I really want this boundary in my life so that I don't have to tolerate these things. Again, go back to your tolerations list and put the boundaries in place, and you will be so glad you did. One of the things that I know that I learned in coaching many, many years ago, when I first decided I was going to become a coach 25 years ago, I think it was, that we learned about tolerations and boundaries and how important they were in working with our clients. And I can tell you, in all my years of coaching, one of the things that when people just can't seem to get where they want to go with their goals, it's because they haven't put those boundaries up. Let's say you're trying to do a marathon. You've got to get yourself, you've got to let people know, I've got to do this practice this many times in order to make it work. That's what makes it effective. So look at my notes here one more time to make sure. The other thing I wanted to say is about time. If you are finding yourself saying, I'd love to, but I don't have the time, number one, ask yourself, would you really love to? Or are you just saying that just because you're being polite? Or what can you do to open up the time to be able to do that thing that you don't ever seem to have the time for, that you really want to do? One of our greatest commodities is our time. And when we can put boundaries into place, it's amazing the time that we find that we have to do the things that we want to do. Use a planner. I mean, here's my planner sitting here in front of me. I'm going to sit here and plan out my day as soon as I turn off this camera, and really getting in there and looking at my boundaries in how I set up my day. Now, sure, I have appointments scheduled for the day. There's things that I know that I have to accomplish throughout the day, my to-dos, as I like to think of them. But as I sit here and plan this morning during my morning momentum practice, I can really see what other things I want to be able to get into my day. Well, who do I want to connect with today? Of my monthly goals, what have I pulled into my weekly goals, and then what is it that I'll get actually done today? Ta-da. All right. So think of Snoop, Snoopy, not like Snoop, the other Snoop Dogg. No, I'm talking about this little spirit animal here, Snoopy, and get those boundaries going around you. You can do it. I know you can. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, like this post. I'll keep these going every Monday. Join us on Wednesday for garden time, and then Friday's free for all. I never know what is going to be in that video, except that this Friday I'm going to share with you, I got me a tattoo, and I'm going to share that video finally with you guys, and how it was and all of that, to get that boundary to remove the boundary I had about being fearful of a tattoo. Yeah, that's what it was. Have a great week ahead, and thanks for stopping by.